Hello and welcome, dear audience. I have the great privilege and pleasure to introduce you to Lewis Kaplan, a multi-talented, extraordinary musician, teacher, conductor, visionary, and one of the greatest joke tellers. Considered a leading interpreter of the music of Bach, in particular the six solo sonatas and partitas, Lewis Kaplan is the founder and director of the Bach Virtuosi Festival in Portland, Maine. He currently serves as senior professor of violin and chamber music at the Juilliard School. He is also the co-founder and for 50 years served as the artistic director of the Bodin International Music Festival. In addition, he is the founder and violinist of the Aeolian Chamber Players, professor of violin at the Mannes College of Music, a visiting professor at the Royal College of Music in London, and an honorary professor at the Shan Conservatory in China. He has presented masterclasses at most of the world's major music centers. And in recognition of his achievements, Lewis Kaplan was knighted in 2009 by the President of Germany. He is a recipient of the William Schumann Scholars Chairs at Juilliard, one of the conservatory's highest honors, and has been a member of the jury at many of the most prestigious violin competitions, including Queen Elizabeth, Tokyo, Hanover, and Fritz Kreisler. Good evening, Louis.
Well, for here it's good afternoon since I'm in New York. But I don't know who you were talking about, Annie. But anyway, it sounded very, very good. Thank you.
It is very good, actually.
We're going to listen to Eliza Nagle. Eliza, come in. There you are. And we're going to first listen to a pre-recorded tape of the C major Largo from the Third Sonata of Bach. So can we go to the videotape? There you are. You have wonderful things. I'm sure you have a wonderful technique and you have basically a very beautiful sound. Um, and I'll bet that you would like everybody else, to be original, to play it your way, right? Yeah, yeah. And so what do people do? They go and they listen to Heifetz or Chrysler or Joshua Bell or whatever and to try to come up. I don't think that's the way to do it. There is a more difficult way, but if you go through the difficulty and it does take guidance, it's very rewarding. And this is not original with me, but it's knowing the score, what the composer is really saying. Another way to look at it, Eliza, is that you are an actress with a violin. And like playing a part in the theater, you have to know who you are. So, are you playing a 14-year-old girl? Or you're playing someone your mother's age? Are you playing someone your grandmother's age? You're going to walk differently. You're going to talk differently if you're a real actress. Otherwise, you're just reading words in a language you don't understand. So maybe I can help you to understand this little bit of the Bach. I think just looking at the Largo itself won't unlock what Bach is thinking. And wouldn't it be great to know what Bach is thinking? Wouldn't it be great if he was in that room at the Royal College with you now saying, this is what I'm thinking, Eliza? Okay,
Yeah.
since that is not possible, the next best thing we'll try. Uh, and uh, I think you need to have an overview of the whole sonata. Certainly, you would agree, Bach saw the whole thing. Agreed. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
think, I think that Bach started in composing this with the second movement, the fugue. And one often hears it played da ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da and so on, right? Well, that isn't quite what Bach had in mind, as though it were London Bridge falling down, okay? Because it comes from a hymn called in German Komm Heiliger Geist, which means come Holy Ghost. So Bach, a very religious man, is speaking about the Trinity. And I'll get to this in the Chaconne, but I'll touch on it here. Bach was a numerologist. And in this hymn, which he did not compose, it goes back several hundred years, but it was Komm Heiliger Geist by Martin Luther, who, of course, Bach was a Lutheran. And everything is in three notes. Ya da ya da ya da ram ya da 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 ya da ya da ram. Okay, uh, and in the first movement, which is an introduction, and it's very clear that it's an introduction because it ends in the dominant, as does the uh, A minor sonata. So clearly he's thinking of that it goes on. And again, he has yom, barom, 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 bayom, barom, in four voices. And by way of trying to think, what is Bach? What's going on in his mind? That rhythm and that dum, ba-bum, ba-bum, he uses in a cantata, number 140, which is called Wachet auf, Awake. And it is an allegory and a story of a wedding. So on the surface, it appears a man and a woman are getting married. But since it's an allegory, it's not just a man and a woman. The man is Christ, and the woman is the human race. So Bach wants to evoke an image of Christ walking. Dum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum. And so that is what you have in the Adagio into Komm Heiliger Geist. And now we jump over the third movement and go to the last. Yagaliam, ba yadadadam. What do you think of that? What do you think?
Joyful celebration of it all, I think.
It's like a
kind of
celebration, right?
like,
So
yeah, a party.
you have a long fugue, and that it is certainly basically serious. Komm Heiliger Geist. You have an introduction to that. You have a last movement of celebration. And now we come back to you, the third movement. What is Bach going to do? And I think one of the genius aspects of Bach, of the many aspects that are genius, is what he does with each one of the third movements of the sonatas. In the G minor, you have a dance, a Sicilienne, which is a little bit unusual to have a dance in a sonata. Okay, and in the A minor, which goes to C major, you have an ostinato in the bass, bum, 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 and an aria over it. And here you have an aria, but it's almost without accompaniment. And that is the genius. And this aria, I mean, arias can be about anything. But this one, perhaps, is a church aria. But I'm only throwing this out to you, Eliza, as suggestions, as a starting off point, as where you can think. You can agree, disagree, whatever, okay? But if you agree that it is an aria, and I think there's a lot of evidence, and Bach, there's a lot of information here. Bach is about harmony. And one of my favorite examples is that Beethoven received a letter from one of his publishers that he was going to publish a few works of Bach. And Beethoven wrote back, great, Bach, the father of harmony, from Beethoven. Nobody ever did harmony better than Bach. And harmony is probably, beyond the simple line, the most essential part of music in general. Okay, so here you just touch on the F major, and I think in music is an imitation of speech, or speech and imitation of music, but they're synonymous. Namely, in every language, it is moving and arriving with consonants and vowels, but that's another subject. Okay, Bach tells you where he wants you to go by where he adds that simple double stop. So ya ra ra ya ya ra 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 yum, and then it's how you feel about that dissonance, the and it goes to the next harmony. Okay, let's take it a step further. If you agree, an aria, who do you want to be singing, a man or a woman?
I would say a woman in this content.
Okay, your age, your mother, your grandmother. Remember, this is not right or wrong. I'm just trying to get a focus from you.
I would say it's quite a young voice in my head, I think.
Okay,
And
do it.
so, okay.
Okay, but if you are a singer, I don't think you would ya da da ya da 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 da. Liza, sing it. Sing it. No, not with the violin. Not with the violin. Sing it. Pretend you are this in your. a young singer, perhaps in a church.
Oh my gosh.
Go on.
I got la 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 la
Okay.
la la
Play just as though you were a singer. Just you are a singer now. You're not a violinist anymore. You're a singer. You're an actress.
Okay.
Okay, much better. Okay, you have a wonderful imagination. Great. Okay, but here, for example, you just went. You passed over Bach's harmony. Harmony. You heard the difference between what da 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 yum with a harmony? That's what I'm talking about. Do it again and just take your time and for the moment imagine the young singer. That's what you want. But we agree it's an aria and probably it's a church aria. It's not singing about the woods or love or something. Well, he is singing about love. That's another story. In fact, I might as well even say it right here. This may surprise you when you're very young, but practically all art, whether it's painting or dance or theater or music, is about some form of love. Think about it. Whether it's a Tchaikovsky love, a Beethoven love of nature, or whether in Bach's case, a love of God. But Eliza, you make it rather sentimental, which, if you want it that way, but you're getting ya, 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 da, 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 ya, da, 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 da. Do you think that's what Bach really has in mind? That you could really just go to and go to. Or to put it another way, Eliza, if you sentimentalize it and take time, you are detracting from the harmony.
Okay.
All of that, you're putting the weight here, but I think that this is very, very important. Harmony, harmony, harmony. In fact, any art is dangerous. In fact, so is life, if you are overly sentimental. You want generally to have structure and to have muscle. And so even though it's a young girl singing, and it could be anything, it could be older or younger, whatever you want. Ya da da ya ya da ya ya da dum ya da da yum da 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 dum ya da da. And not only you go to those notes, but you want to feel what that means to you. What this dissonance has got to go somewhere. And then back. Again, dissonant. Back. And more. Do you see how each one has a different feeling? What I am teaching you is that it's those different chords and how you feel about them. then it will be right. It will be what you want. That is how to be original. Do it.
Okay.
Okay, that you have a really, hello. You have a really wonderful ear. Good for you, and a great sense of concentration. That was really, really, really good. When he returns in C major, he adds, and the same tune, but just in C major, he adds more slurs. So he's inconsistent. But sometimes ya 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 da 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 da. I don't think a singer would sing da 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 da. But ya da da ya da da ya da ya da 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 yam. Okay, and I think the way to really learn it and to develop it is if you sing it first and then play it. Get used to singing and then translating it from your voice into the violin. Very, very, very important. In almost all violinists, but all instrumentalists, there is a breakdown between what they think, what they're hearing, and what they think they're playing, and what they are playing. Okay? The big thing is to have an idea and to accurately connect from here into here. Make sense? The way to,
Yes.
I think is best to do it is sing it. That's your idea. It's going to come out that way. And then decide what you want. Okay? Let's play a little bit more. Try it one more time
Okay.
and be that wonderful, beautiful singer in St. Thomas Kirche in Leipzig. And Bach is there in the front row with a smile and he's listening to you. Okay, and then here, Eliza, Bach is inconsistent about this too. But when he writes, you call it a quaver, and then a semiquaver, two semiquavers under it, I think that he feels that it's redundant, that it would be saying the same thing twice if he puts a slur. As I say, he's inconsistent. But it could be that because of that he wants don't be afraid to add more legato. That want to do it right from
Yes.
No. Do Eliza, two notes on a bow. That's what I think he means. Play just this. Play the top line. Play the top line. Okay, and how about you stop thinking about being that beautiful soprano in a church. Ya-da-da, ya-da, ya.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, this is very important. I don't care. I don't care that you missed a note. It all changed. There's a huge lesson here. The lesson is that when you know what you want and you have an idea, in this case, the young soprano and the aria and the church, everything changed. That is the key. Okay. Now, put the two together, two on a bow. Eliza, 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 Eliza. In church,
It's
you
a
are still
delay,
da
sorry.
ya da da. Don't take your concentration off of that, who you are. Okay, so again here, you would not, no singer would, ah. So you came out of character. Okay, I'll tell you another thing. Bach is always thinking in multiple voices, even when he has a single line. So here, it's a bass, soprano, alto, bass. So even on a single line, it's multiple voices. So here, this clearly is a bass. Back to the soprano. Both of them. Bass, soprano. This is the joy of making music, that you can be who you want to be. But of course, what you want to do is you say, what is the composer doing? Because any of these composers have extraordinary minds, extraordinary. Okay? And if you can look into their minds and then say, this is what they're thinking, if you just say this is what it's about, it's the theme and variations, or it's an aria, great, you're a musicologist. Fine, good, it's an F major, great. Okay, but you are not a musicologist, you are an artist. And you have to take what you know and you have to make it come off the page. They're not just black dots on a white piece of paper. You take it off the page and make it into something that is real, like you were doing just now. Do right here again, more legatos and multiple voices. The voices are whoever you want to be. Okay, and here, and now he's in C major. So we'll leave it here. You have a unusual amount of ability and ear, intelligence, and imagination. Okay, take all of that and try to do this in everything that you play. Everything. Okay? I hope that helps you.
Yes.
You have a friend
Thank you
there
so much for your
named
time.
Joel?
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'll just go and get him in.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm not used to playing or teaching with these on it, and I don't want to look at the screen. The one
Hello.
second delay drives me nuts. You must be Joel. Do you hear me? Something's wrong. Do you hear me now? Do you hear me? 1, 2, 3,
I
4.
can't hear anything.
Vadim, could we do something? Or you're saying hello to Joel, not to me, right? Joel, do you hear me now?
I hear you now, yes. Hello.
Okay, so we're going to start with Joel's video of the first movement, the Adagio of the G minor sonata. And that was you. Uh, were you in the room, Joel, when I was teaching Eliza?
I wasn't. I couldn't hear because of these AirPods.
Oh, uh, okay. I hate to repeat myself. You are an actor with a violin, okay? Uh, and you have to know who you are, what you are. Uh, and the only remotely accurate way that you're going to do it is to not know just the adagio, but to have a picture of the whole sonata. Once again, I think that Bach started with the second movement, with the fugue. Do you play the fugue at all? Even three measures? Play it.
Yes.
Play it. Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. Um, what do you think of the fugue, since that's where he started? What do you think of the character? Anything you want to can tell me about it?
Well, I think it has, uh, being a fugue, it wants to move forward. It wants to, yeah, when it begins, it wants to get to the end in a sense. Uh, I think the character is quite, well, there are so, I don't know, there are so many ways I think it's possible to perform it. But I always think how in rhythm it has to be, in tempo, and having this very articulate energy to it.
Okay, so you're saying that essentially it's rhythmic.
Right.
I
Yeah.
agree with you. I agree. Ya ba 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 is not a melody. It's just a rhythm, the repeated note.
Yes.
Uh, but I think we look all the time for the clues. Keep in mind that a composer is always trying to tell us what he or she wants. They're not trying to keep it a secret. They want the best performance they can get. Okay? In this case,
Yes.
we're fortunate. Bach writes the tempo allegro, and it's the only time in the fugue that he gives a tempo marking. But also of great importance, he writes alla breve, to the breve, to the, and as we say in the U.S., half note. Uh, okay, I think that's really, really important. And I think that anything that begins bop, 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 bom cannot be serious. Anything dot, 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 dom already is that. In allegro, I've never seen a serious allegro alla breve. Okay, so it's rhythmic and yum ba 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 da ya ya ba bam. Okay, I'm going to leave the fugue here because what we want to talk about is the adagio. But we needed to establish what the fugue is because the first movement, the adagio, is a lead-in. It's an introduction to that. So
Yes.
if he is light rhythmic, it's unlikely that he's going to be grim and serious about what he wants in the introduction. It wouldn't make sense. Okay, so he writes adagio. The key thing that you would have to answer right away is that adagio is that to the what do we call it? I forget what you call it. The quarter note. Is it four to a measure, or is it subdivided eight to a measure? What is he thinking?
Well, if I'm honest, I do think in eight to a measure, but I think it is in four because I feel that if you feel it in eight, it's going to lose shape and it's going to lose the line because there are the pillars and then the improvisation to the next harmony.
That's very important, and I agree with you that it's in four. Okay. Uh, what do you say that it goes to the next harmony? What about all those notes in between? What do you think of them? All those fast notes.
I I think well, I guess back then they very often have composers would write harmony and then allow a performer to improvise, and it feels as if Bach is sort of taking that liberty
You
away from the performer and saying, "I'm going to improvise here."
Good for you. You said improvise, and I think that's perfect. You're exactly right. Okay, that those fast notes are an ornamentation or an improvisation. And there's a wonderful lesson here because he does it at the beginning in G minor, and then in measure 14 he does the same thing in C minor. Okay,
Yes,
that he can take exactly the same chord progression and improvise in a completely different way. What a remarkable, wonderful view we have of Bach here. I didn't get the impression, Joel, that you were convinced about what you said, that it's in four. And so I think that you're right. I like the analogy that the chords, the harmony, are like a suit. This is it. And the improvisation, as we have just seen, is like a necktie, or you wear a handkerchief, or a bow, or something, right? But you keep the suit. You change this, you change the
yes,
tie, okay? And I think that you could exaggerate much more. And when we talk about the chord, it needs to know what you feel about every chord. I would really take every chord and I would write it into the part, G minor, D7, whatever the chord is, and say, how do you feel about it? And most importantly,
yes,
is that remember, harmony is from the bass up. We as violinists are not used to playing the bass. We're used to playing that treble top line. Okay? Here you're playing all the parts. And but you couldn't hear me say it, Bach is not just thinking of a chord. Bach is thinking of different voices. And here you have a bass, tenor, alto, soprano, and then together. Again, bass, tenor. And the G is an appoggiatura of what is really intended to be a D7 chord. Okay? That's really,
yes,
really important. How about you try it? So we want to think voices. It's a lot to think about. You want to think the chord in its total. You want to think of ornamentation. And as you put it correctly, that you are going to the D7 chord. You're going to the next chord. Do it.
yes.
Okay. Joel, as soon as you do, even from the beginning, but you're an 8. Yum, bum, you're an 8.
Yeah.
And how do we know it's in 4? Because the harmony is in 4. That this is going, and then here, that it's in 4. So don't be afraid. You got to really think. You were right. I agree with you. But do it. 2,
Yes.
3, 4. Okay. And that's a very slow 4. Yum, 2, 3 is adagio.
Yes.
Bravo, Joel. That's really, that's fantastic. Really a great sense of concentration and imagination. You're really wonderful. Probably you have wondered at some point about Baroque style, right? It's occurred to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The big thing, the difference between modern and Baroque is that in modern, you sustain with the bow and the nuance is made with the vibrato, the left hand. And even after the Baroque, Leopold Mozart, Mozart's father, in his wonderful treatise book, wrote very little vibrato. And so this is the reason that you hear these Baroque players. Okay, because they are making the nuance with the bow. Now, I think there is just as much horrible nuance made with the bow by Baroque players as there is with people playing with vibrato. Okay? And I think the way to do it is what you're feeling about the chords and that. And given the bow, they could not or did not want to sustain. So you are playing in a modern vibrato sustaining. You can have whatever you want. Okay. This. So what I've told you is factual about the right bow arm versus the left hand. The next is my opinion. I think one can play beautifully on a modern violin in a Baroque style. Okay, it may have a somewhat more personal quality at 415 on a Baroque violin with an old neck and so on, gut strings. But I think you could come pretty close on the violin. I think given your concentration and imagination, would you like to try to do it in a more Baroque way? Some people are even doing this, holding the bow up here.
Yeah.
That's up to you. That's up to you, whether you want to.
Okay.
If you're holding the bow up here, and I don't, but if you are, it's almost impossible to sustain that way, as you'll see. And we'll say, well, how did they know that that's the way they hold the bow? There are so many paintings by the greatest artists. I think, have you ever been to the Louvre in Paris?
I haven't been to Paris yet, actually.
Oh, you'll love it.
But I'm going. I'm going this. Yeah.
Okay. In the same room which you will visit as the Mona Lisa, there is an enormous painting by the great Renaissance artist Veronese. It's called Wedding Feast at Cana. It's huge, size of a large wall. And in it, their eye, these artists, is so fantastic. I mean, you could even see, there are the musicians entertaining at the wedding feast. And you could even see the notes. It's all absolutely there. And the way the gamba player is holding the bow, or the others too. And there were many, many, many such paintings. So for sure, this is the way that they held the bow. That's a lot of evidence. These artists were like photographers. I mean, they just nailed it. It was great. Okay? So try it and try thinking about what you want with the chord, about how you feel about that, and do it with the bow rather than with the vibrato.
Okay, yeah.
Joel, That's a phenomenal transition. Fantastic. You could exaggerate more that A is relatively harmonic. Now here you have that distance, how you feel. And again, that. When you played it just now, there wasn't that much difference between that and that.
Yes.
Okay, much better. Now I'm going to tell you and everybody who is watching, one of the most important things that I ever learned was, I don't know, about 10 or 15 years ago. A scientist friend of mine said to me that the human brain and the computer work the same way. Namely, they both do one function at a time. But of course, with a computer and a supercomputer, it is happening so fast that it seems instantaneous, but it's not. It's and I said, well, to myself, how do you know that the human brain works the same way? And I'm very proud that I found an example that opened the door to me. You're watching the television and someone is speaking and there's a news coming across at the bottom. And the only way you, Joel, and me can do both is that you're going back and forth. Ah, you recognize that. Think about that as one function at a time. And you say, well, what does that have to do with playing the violin? Well, it has everything to do with when you practice. You want to try to, when you practice, every note that you play, you are programming the computer. I'll give you an analogy there. When you were, 10 months old, you stood up and you took a step and you fell down. The next day, you stood up and you took 2 steps and you fell down. Think of it. You were programming the computer to learn how to walk. When you're brain dead, you can't even lift a finger. It's gone. Okay? When you practice, you are programming the computer. Everything that you put in, if you practice, that will be your sound. Everything that you do is what you're putting into the computer. So you can at times focus, let's say, on the rhythm, another time on the harmony, another time on the vibrato, and so on and so on. But try to condition your brain, the computer, to be supercomputer, that you're thinking dee 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 dee. And with the major violinists or pianists, they are very capable of doing that. That is why they can, let's say, play in tune with a great sound, have some interpretation, and so on. They're, as you would say, multitasking.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a very, very, very important lesson. Very important. Here I felt you now were thinking about and that your rhythm, that 4 to a measure, was not as good. So you focus on one thing, you gave up another. Try now, we'll do this last thing, to do both, that you're going back and forth between harmony and not losing that big beat.
Yes.
Okay. Joel, one last thing. I hear you just played. I didn't know what you were thinking. Think about what. One thing we can talk about is this is one voice, then it's joined by another voice, then a dissonance, and then he goes into a long bass progression. Let's know what you are.
Yeah.
What do you want it to be? What do you want it to be?
Oh, I say it with words. Well, I wanted to. I do want to hear to distinguish voices, and but I sort of, in terms of interpretation, I sort of think of it as taking a step back from where we've been.
Okay, do
Yeah.
it. Great. Just remember, keep it in 4.
Yes.
Here, if you do equal accent, equal stress, you're an 8.
Yeah. Yes.
Here you have. Wait a minute, Joel. You have in the bass line and the upper voice another person. Bass, 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 and then back. By itself, it's not going to come out. I need to know how you feel about that.
Yes.
Okay. We have to stop it here. Thomas, you play beautifully. You have really a marvelous sense of concentration. What you did, these changes are very difficult, and you just did them right off, going from being an 8 into being in 4, being the harmony and the ornamentation, thinking of the different voices. All of that was really quite extraordinary, what you did. I really congratulate you, and I congratulate your teachers, whoever, on how beautifully you do play. Okay? I hope again that will
Thank you.
help you. You're welcome.
It's
So
really
now I'm going to take these off.
Really helpful. Thank you.
And come back to the real world and talk a little bit about the Chaconne. So with these, give myself a little more room, 8 measures, Bach begins one of the greatest works ever written. Oh, great work. Why is it a great work? I don't know. It's a great work. Okay. So let's think about, wish we had an interactive thing, but we don't. Okay. So we'll start with what is a chaconne. A chaconne is a dance. Very important now. Remember this, especially in the Baroque, but anytime you have a dance. Every dance has 3 things that you need to be very aware of. Okay, 1 is meter. A dance is either in 2 or 3. 2 and 4 are binary, they're the same. Okay, so meter. Second thing is tempo, slow, moderato, fast, whatever the tempo of the dance is. And then the third thing, very, very, very important, gesture. So if I take 2 dances that probably you're all familiar with, they're both in triple meter, a minuet. The gesture, dum, da-dum, da-dum, da-yum, ba-dum, 3, he won, 3, he won, okay. Without that gesture, it's not going to be a minuet. Another dance in 3, bum, 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 bum. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and a whirling effect. So 1, 2, and a light 3. The minuet was 3, he won, 3, he won. With it. So now we come back to the Chaconne. Again, it's in triple meter. It's a moderate to slow dance. And the gesture, very important, is 1, 2. Da, 1, 2. And that is exactly the same as the saraband. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. Okay. However, there's a very big difference, big one, between the saraband and the chaconne. Namely, that the chaconne has an ostinato bass, a bass line that is repeated over and over. Same as the passacaglia, by the way. And now we go to Bach. What does Bach use as his bass line, the ostinato? It is basically 4 notes, or sometimes the C sharp, okay? Pretty much as basic as you can get. But Bach, being Bach, doesn't even start that way. He starts with a variation on ya, ya, yum, boy, yum. And if you look at the bass line, and if we could put up the score is coming. Hey, Vadim, where's the score? There we go. Okay, if you look at the bass line, so you have with a variation of it. And you have the ba 3 1, da 1 2, da 1 2, da 1 2. And then he goes in measure 9 to the first variation. If you follow the bass line, it's the same as the first 8 measures. And now the melody continues, same as the measure 9, the first variation. Now we're at measure 17. Now if we look at the bass starting in measure 17, 18, you see Bach has changed it to okay. So instead of what was a rather open feeling in traditional music, it's as tight as it could get, all half steps. And then again, it will be what we do with that, how much and how much. Now we're at measure 25, I think, and he goes back to and now it's even more disguised. And now you see that is that second variation of the theme. So we'll call the first one A and we'll call this one B. Except he simplifies it. But it's the same. Now we're at measure 49. In measure 49, he introduces what we will call C, a third variation, which now instead of 1, 2, everything before had been 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 1, 2. This one is 1, 3. Measure 49. And as he does throughout, he starts with an idea and introduces it in a rather simple way. And then he builds and he builds and he builds on that idea. So here, he doesn't even introduce, he introduces a variation of a variation. Instead of and then he inverts it. There's the B, C, A. And then here he finally has variations on the same. And then he gets to it even more. Now it becomes and so he can go no further with that idea. So he goes on to a new idea. And you hear on this one that he has, let me look at the measure numbers are sort of blurred here. That would be measure, can't see it, 77. This, notice, very simple. C sharp, B, and here I think of this as a cadenza. And it took me 50 years to find out where he got this from. Remember, the whole piece is based on that inverted. Okay, it's obsessive, it's fantastically disguised, but it's. I just thought, well, before it's in cadenza, is it improvising? No, it's not that easy. And then he goes on to introduce and he's playing a lot of fast notes. But I maintain he's standing still. Well, how can you say he's playing fast notes? How is he standing still? The chord doesn't change. It's just in one place. Then here he moves. Then I think it's measure 99. He's introducing what we will call the D theme. Instead of it being 4 notes, he shrinks it to 3. Then he takes it up an octave. And so on until he comes to measure 113. Okay, got everybody? Measure 113. And he has, and which is an inversion where he started. Frame it, because you'll know in a minute what Bach thinks of it. So then he finishes that section. It goes like this at 113. Then he takes on, which has the B theme and the C theme all combined. Now, you don't have to be a musician to know something phenomenal is happening. So what makes it so phenomenal? He has, starting in measure 120, 130 is where it starts, really built on the D. Then he has in the bass. Okay, we all recognize that. That's the A theme. Now, if you go to measure 127, 128, the last beat of 128 on the G. The C theme. And in 129, on the second beat in the bass, second beat of the D of 129. Remember 113? What a summation. He's taken all of that material that he's done the first half of the Chaconne with, and he's rolled it all into one grand finale of the first section. Then he goes to D major and here he uses what we'll call A, B, C, D, E theme, and it's again 1, 2. Just look at the bass line of D major. And he uses that throughout the D major section. Then he begins variations on a variation. Same bass. And now I want to skip a few measures to measure 157. Everybody got it? Quite a number of years ago, a colleague of mine told me about the golden section, or the Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci, what a beautiful name, Leonardo Fibonacci, was a Florentine. He was actually born in Livorno and in Tuscany and Florence. And he developed a mathematical equation which holds true in so many forms of nature. And try to follow me on this. If you take 1 plus 2, you get 3. Everybody got that, okay? Now the last number, 1 plus 2, take that number 2 and the new number 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 2, 5. 5 plus 3, 8. 8 plus 5, 13. And at this point, the equation 0.618, or the fraction, enters. And it stays that way for infinity. Sometimes it goes as much as 6.619, 6.2. Sometimes it dips a little bit below. But essentially, it stays there. It's the angle that the branches of a tree, the human form, from the navel to the head, from the navel to your feet, is approximately 618. And even the violin, from here to here versus here to here, is 618. And it has many, many other meanings. If you, the next time our friend Joel, who just played, goes to the Louvre, notice the Renaissance paintings, that the high point is not in the middle of the painting. Invariably, it's off at 618, either that way or this way. And Bach was a numerologist. He believed in the power of numbers, and that was not uncommon in his day. And he inserted his name numerically in many ways. If you take the numbers in his name, Bach, B is the second letter of the alphabet. Got it? A, first letter. C, 3, and H, 8. 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 8 is 14. And the number of that he uses it is in so many different ways. At any rate, here is the Fibonacci sequence. When I heard about it, I ran back, okay, where's 0.618 in the Chaconne? Right here, the highest notes other than a G in the early part, which really doesn't count. Okay, so it's right on the bar line, 618. And then he does okay, so to a numerologist, 3, the Trinity has all kinds of meanings. And if you take that 8 measures, beginning in 203, is that? 161. And you count 8 measures. How many times does ya-ba-bam occur? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 9 times in 8 measures. 3 times 3. I don't think this is an accident. And then even more, he goes on. The Trinity becomes 1. And what instrument? What instrument, if you were orchestrating, would you give that? Horns or trumpets, right? I have no idea, and I don't make any pretense about it, what Bach is trying to say. It's up to the imagination, but for sure, he is saying something, because mathematically, it all is focused there. The trumpets are a telling thing. I don't think it could be anything else but that. And I think, again, as I mentioned earlier in our little visit and talk together, as a musicologist, I could say this is this, and this is this, and it's A theme, D theme, E theme, whatever, 99 theme. And it doesn't really mean anything to you as musicians, as performers. But once you know what this is, then you have the great leap. What does it mean to you, and what are you going to do about it? And if you don't know what anything that you're playing, what the meaning is, then you are just reading words in a language you can read phonetically, but you don't understand. And you disguise it with a beautiful sound and facility, but it's still a void. And this was known over 2,500 years ago. I believe it was Socrates. It was one of the ancient Greeks who said that at the music competitions, that the contestants were all interested in technique, 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 and more technique. And he said, you only need as much technique as is needed to express what you want to say. And I'll take it a step further. He then added, who did he blame? He blamed the teachers, because they wanted their students to win the competitions, so they would then have more students, they would make more money, and so on. So nothing has changed in 2,500 years. And remember that too. A pretty wise man, assuming it was Socrates, it doesn't matter, it might have been Aristotle. But you only need as much technique as is needed to say what you want to say. And in that sense, I would close with, you can go to any of the major conservatories around the world, and there are pianists and violinists and cellists and flutists, all with loads of technique and a big sound. How many have a sound as beautiful as Fritz Kreisler or Jascha Heifetz? None. And think about it. What is music about? To start with, music is about sound. And so you do want to have a beautiful sound. You want that, but you don't want to be a moron and ignorant. You want to know what it is, and you want to take all of that facility, all of that talent, all of that imagination, all of that sound, and totally focus on what it is you want to say. I've enjoyed our visit, so I'll say good afternoon or good night, depending on what part of the world you are. I guess some places maybe even good morning. So thank you, Annie.
Dear Luis, thank you for your passion, rather. Thank you, dear Luis, for your passion. Very few people have this passion for music, for Bach, and thank you for sharing from your great wisdom and specialism with us.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to say that Annie Schnark and Itzhak Krashkovsky are my colleagues and my friends.
Thank you. I hope to see you very soon at New Virtuosi again. Maybe in person.
I hope so.
All the best. So here we are. Thank you very much for joining us, dear audience, and for sharing with us from Lewis Kaplan's ideas, experience, knowledge. And I would like to invite you for the next masterclass tomorrow at 7 o'clock GMT +1, in which we'll listen to more wisdom from Georgi Pauk. Thank you.